Well, the first thing I'd say is I feel you, brother. I know what it's like to experience that. And what you're experiencing right now, if you lean into it, is the greatest opportunity. Like everything that you want and more will come from you facing and embracing what it is you're resisting. And at a more practical level is like what skills, what parts of you need to be integrated, need to be transformed, need to be let go of so that you can be the man that you're here to be. Where are you on that 0 to 10 right now? Find ways, find people, find support, get around people that are a notch or two above your emotional home, that are living maybe lives a little bit more fulfilling or a lot more fulfilling. Learn, become a student, apprentice yourself with curiosity, apprentice yourself and have enough courage and humility to learn from others and have enough courage and respect for yourself to distance or move away from those who aren't supporting you in this moment.
Rick, I'm stoked to have you here. And as you do, let me take a sip of hot tea with honey in these seasons of the flu.
Great to be here with you, Morgan.
Summertime Sweden, and it's so great to have you here. So this might be a hard question to answer, but I'm asking it anyway. So is it possible for you to give me a 30,000 foot view on your path from a 40-year-old entrepreneur to where you are today? So if you could just give me 3 bullet points before we dig into how you transform people's lives.
Absolutely. So 30,000 foot view, we zoom right out.
Yeah.
14 years old. I get into gaming. I get into Halo 2, Halo 3. And I was just obsessed, man. I was just obsessed with the community. I would just love the competitiveness of the game and ended up spending 8 to 10 hours a day playing. And that was my first intro to competitive. It was my first intro into business. So at that time, I recognized that other players wanted to play with us. And I recognized at that time that other companies also wanted to get involved because Dr. Pepper was actually the sponsor of the league. So at that time, I was like, maybe I could get our team sponsored, and ended up getting our team sponsored. We traveled around the world. We had our flights, hotels, everything paid for. And that was kind of my first intro into entrepreneurship and personal development, because about 2 or 3 months prior to me kind of having these ideas, I went downstairs and my mom had these success tapes by a hypnotist called Paul McKenna. He's still on the circuit today. He's actually a Mindvalley author. He's still cool.
Author. He's a Mindvalley author. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. It's a beautiful full circle moment. And yeah, I was listening to his tapes every night as I went to bed. And it was about 2 months after that I started having new ideas. And I'm curious for anyone listening, what in your life has had you begin thinking in a different way, whether it be a book or whether it be a friend or whether it be new people you're surrounding yourself by? Are there things in your life that you tune into that have had those shifts on you? Because that was a huge one for me. That was one of those early formative experiences that kind of opened my mind to what was possible. And that stuck with me and led into my entrepreneurial journey by the time I was 20. And, I've been working for myself, building businesses since then.
Yeah. How old were you when you started listening to Paul McKenna?
I must have been about 13, 14. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Yeah. That's really early.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it all a smooth ride?
No, man. No.
So when in the story did you just realize that you want to work as a life coach?
Man, that was a journey. And I think many of us, and I'm curious how this has been for you, and I'm curious to those who are listening, I've kind of been asking myself the question of really what am I here for? What are my gifts? What are my talents? In what way do I love contributing? In what way does my contribution seem to have the most impact? And I've been tracking that my whole life. And it took me a really long time to recognize that I somehow had the ability to bring out the best in other people. Now, rewind back to the gaming, when I was inside of that, I was actually the coach of the gaming team. And it was actually my idea to be like, okay, cool, we can do this. We can get ourselves sponsored. So that was like the first breadcrumbs of personal development and leadership and coaching being a part of my journey. And I wasn't aware that that was something that I could do full time until much, much, much later. Then teen years, I kind of went off track, probably like many of us. And my story was that I ended up living with a death metal band. And, you know, I was taking all sorts of stuff, MDMA, ketamine, cocaine, speed, you know, smoked heroin at one point. And my kind of life was just like just going down, 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 down. And I had like a wake up moment inside of that where I took a chemical cocktail, if you will, and thought I was dying and had a near-death experience. And through that, I said, I'm going to get my life back on track and start going to the gym and start looking after myself and start reading more books and really start taking my life seriously because, you know, for a moment, I thought that was it. I thought my life was over. And I was really contemplating, like, how did I show up? How did I impact other people? What were my regrets? And there was lots of them. And if that was my moment to die, I would have really regretted how I showed up in life. And it put me in touch with the preciousness of our life. And that had me get myself back together. It was like, okay, cool. I'm moving out of this house. I deleted contacts, got a new number, and just started afresh and started going to the gym, got back into entrepreneurship, built my first business in the fitness industry, one of the largest, what's the right word? That's it. We're one of the largest affiliates for health supplements in the UK. We worked with all the top brands. By the end of it, we had like 200,000 members who were using our site. And that was like my kind of getting my life back on track. Didn't lead me to fulfillment. But again, through that time, I realized that I was great at getting the best out of people. You know, my developer was originally working as a mechanic and he was just one of my mates. And I could just see that he had this gift for developing and designing. And our next developer who came on the team, he was working at, it's called Asda, which is the UK's version of Walmart. Same company. And again, I could see he had this talent and gift and was able to bring that out in him, believed in him, coached him. And eventually we started to build this team. So during that whole time, I was super interested in, you know, hypnosis, personal development. I was reading books. I was listening to Tim Ferriss. I was listening to Tony Robbins. I was, you know, learning to meditate at that time. You know, I was getting into, just like all the beginning part of my leadership and coaching and I guess therapeutic journey, which then has just grown and grown and grown since then.
And you mentioned there getting in touch with your purpose. How do you facilitate space or help men get in contact with their purpose? Or am I saying that like wrong? Do you find your purpose or get connected with it, or can you go get it? Like the word purpose is thrown around like so much in the self-help community. Can you define what you mean by purpose? And through some of your testimonials, I've also heard like, okay, I like through the help of Rick, I got in touch with my purpose. So I hear that also like in your content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of what I teach and share has come from my own journey through trying lots of stuff on, from sitting, trying to do, you know, spreadsheets and graphs and diagrams of like, fuck, like if I can just think my way to my purpose.
I've done it too. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah. And just like countless, you know, there was a time in my life where you just go on my YouTube feed because it shows you what you've been reading, and just everything's about purpose. And what I actually come to find about purpose and the way that I teach and support other men to find it comes from the way that I found it, which was in some ways the opposite of what I would have assumed. And that's purpose is an energy. I just think about it right now. What we're using language to use a word, which is purpose. But purpose is really it is a psychosomatic, which means it's a felt sense. We're talking about something much deeper. We're talking about a biological impulse, if you will, to serve, to give, to contribute, to share and support. It's an impulse that we see in others, right? You can see great leaders, whether it be Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Barack Obama or many musicians or artists or creatives or also coaches and therapists, and we can see it, we can feel it, right? It's a feeling, it's a state of being, which sounds in some ways cliche, but the piece here that shifted the game for me and really changed my ability to see, feel, and know what purpose was for me was through getting in touch with my body, my emotions, which as a man I had cut off from. And what I come to learn is that actually purpose is an emotional state. Purpose and our emotions is the compass. So if you're cut off from your emotions, you're cut off from your compass. And to the degree that you've been cut off from your compass, that's going to have you, it's like you're sailing at sea, but you don't know where you're going, because where you desire to go is within you. It's a state of being that is directing you. It's a state of being that is pulling you towards something that is aligned and true and real for you. So like many things, entrepreneurship can just be about building business. It can also be a spiritual journey. Finding your purpose can just be something you loop around, but it can also be a deeply spiritual journey, as can relationship. All of these different areas of our life show us, they're like a mirror that shows us where areas of our psychological and spiritual development has gaps and where there is shadow and where there is challenge. Because if deep down your purpose is to sing or speak or share, and because normally our purpose requires us to be around other people, but you have a part of you or a belief system from when you were 2, 3, 4, 10 years old that had you shut down that part of you, every time you go to take a step towards it, your nervous system and your beliefs are going to say, That's also a cue of danger. So often people are just like circling around what it is that they want to do, because in order to do the thing, they would have to confront the fear or the trauma or the pain or the beliefs that have been limiting them. So the way that I help other men get there is through learning to face, and it's a skill set. You can do it in a way that just dysregulates you and throws you out, just like many things in life. You can do it in a way that kind of doesn't work, but there's a way to do it in such a way that actually has you be able to confront it, that has you be able to work with the arising of the dysregulation, with the arising of the fear, and be able to alchemize it. And when you do that, when you clear the blocks, when you clear the blocks of belief, when you clear the fears or the traumas or the conditioning that have lodged themselves in the nervous system or in the emotions or in the body, when you do that, what happens is your compass becomes clear, or clearer and clearer and clearer. And you start to recognize you're no longer deluding yourself. You start to recognize, actually, I really love this. And you start to recognize, okay, cool, I've got some fears here around that. But when you have the skill to be able to take the steps towards those things, you start to have the recognition that I can do this, that I can overcome this fear. I'm not locked in to this. This is something that I can overcome. And that's what I did in my own life. It's the reason I'm able to be here speaking with you. It's the reason that I'm able to create content. I mean, I was terrified of all of these things. I used to have just sweat dripping down my armpit at the idea of speaking in a group because of what I had experienced through my life experiences, through trauma and conditioning. I had certain beliefs that wouldn't allow me to do that. And every time I did, my body would just freeze up, or I would just create strategies to avoid something. Don't know if you've ever in your life really wanted something, but as soon as you start thinking of that thing, either your mind distracts you and takes you elsewhere, or something else pops up and you just keep pushing it to the side. And where I have men go is to that place.
Yeah. Yeah, that has happened to me all the time. And the thing is to be aware of it. And I love what you said about like that business and relationship can be a spiritual practice. A lot of people might not see it that way. And that made me think about relationship, because you give a lot of relationship advice in your content. Thinking that relationship, I hear this all the time, like the relationship brings out bad stuff in me that I need to work on because it gets reflected in the other person. When is it time to just run the fuck out of here from a relationship? When is it like appropriate to just like stay and realize that these are parts of me that I don't want to look at, these are trauma responses, or there is something for me to learn here? Like that difference for me is, I can't see how to navigate in that.
Mm.
Do you understand
Great
what I'm
question. Yeah, great question.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking, when is the right time to stay and when is the right time to leave?
Yeah, basically.
Well, when a man comes to me, and I work with couples, and is sharing what you're sharing, what I would share with him in that moment is, unless you give this relationship 100%, the chances are you're going to repeat these patterns elsewhere. Now, this is a complex question because what we have to look at in any relationship is both the desire of the partner. Like, are you with someone who wants to grow? Are you with someone who is also willing to be on a learning journey about relationship? Because most people are in relationship reflecting the same patterns that they grew up with. So they feel normal. And it can be even difficult to see the patterns because you've grew up inside of these relational contexts, which may not be supporting the upward spiral of a flourishing or a connective relationship. And the relationship can just feel hard. It can feel difficult. Now, most people that I meet and most people I work with simply just have not learned the skills of how to be in relationship, one, with themselves, because that's where it all begins, and then two, with others, especially a romantic other, because your romantic other is the prime place upon which your, it's called your attachment system, but in short, that essentially means your internalized relationship with the masculine and the feminine, or with mum and with dad, based on what you have witnessed and experienced. And from that, you create certain beliefs around love, you create certain beliefs around yourself, around your worthiness of love. All of these different dynamics are living within us. And if they have not been worked on or worked through, then they show up in the relationship, and they tend to show up as triggers. Now, I didn't know that you could be in a relationship a decade ago that would be supportive, that would predominantly be an upward spiral, that would predominantly be having conversations versus arguments, predominantly having the sense of, wow, this relationship is fueling me and is actually giving me more energy. But in order for me to arrive there, there was two things that had to happen. One, I had to clean up my developmental trauma basement, rework my attachment wounding, because what would show up for me inside a relationship is my partner would disagree with me in the past, or she would walk out, and then I would be like, oh, fuck. And I would be hit with like anxiety. Oh my God, she's going to leave. My brain would jump to things that aren't true, but felt true. And then from that, I would react versus respond, which would then hit the other person's pain body or trauma body or nervous system. And then it would just like boom, 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 boom. And it would feel like, our relationships used to feel like they're hard work. It was like, oh God, oh my God, like fucking hell, we're back here again. But similar to any field, whether it be in your work or a sport you play or in any area of your life you have proficiency, and this is to everyone listening, every single person listening right now would have something you could teach me. Every single person listening right now would have something that you could teach me, or you could teach another. Now, what I didn't understand that completely changed the game for me was that what I'm talking about here in regards to relationship is that it's a learnable skill set. There are certain aspects of relating to oneself and relating to others that is a skill. Now, my dad left when I was 6 months old. And for anyone listening, you might have had a parent that showed up fully, and you might have had another parent that didn't show up at all. Or maybe some combo. And therefore, these are the patterns that we learn. And then those patterns show up in our life, and that's who we think we are. But that is not who we are. We cannot be our patterns. It's impossible. I'm not a pattern. You're not a pattern. I believe I am the being, the essence beneath those patterns. I believe you are the being and the essence beneath those patterns. And from that place, it's workable. We can rework the patterns, which is why we get mentorship, which is why I got mentorship, which is why I got coaching. I got around people who had the type of relationship and life that I actually desired. And those people completely changed my life. And I will be eternally grateful because now, well, like 12, 13 years later, I'm in a relationship like that. And that once just seemed like something that was a distant dream. And I kind of like, maybe it's a skill set. You know, it's like when you're learning something for the first time. I'm currently learning to sing with my wife right now just for fun.
Oh, cool.
And I used to have the belief that I couldn't sing. I grew up because the times that I attempted to sing, I wasn't a natural born singer. And in the UK, basically what they used to do, I don't know if they still do this, and I'm curious where you live if they do this, but they would have everyone line up and they're just like, sing. And
in school,
like
you
two
mean?
or three of the people, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. Two or three of the people will be like, you know, they would just be belting it and hitting it. And they're like, cool, you are the singers. No, you're the guitarist, you're the drummer. I don't even know what you are. And it's like in that moment, I was not one of the natural singers. And in that precise moment, like, boom, I cannot sing. Just a belief formed right there. Now, I also recognize that beliefs are constructed because I do not believe I am my beliefs. I believe they have an impact. I believe they can show up in my life, but I do not believe I am a belief. So I recognize that, and we've been singing, and actually turns out me and my wife can sing, and singing is also a learnable skill. So my point here is there are many things in life that we think are actually limitations, but they're actually just opportunities. And these patterns can be rewired and refired in a way that actually creates the type of results that we actually desire in our life.
I love that so much. And I know you're probably friends with Eric Edmes, also a Mindvalley author. So
I know Eric through my wife, where we met actually.
Yeah.
She is the host of A-Fest, so she's
okay
friends with all of those guys. So that's where I met my wife at
an
A-Fest.
A-Fest. All right. Yeah. Is it possible to go with the whole family to A-Fest or adults only?
Adults only.
All right. I've been thinking about going, so I have to leave my family at home. But anyway, so I saw a video with Eric Edmes about like the perfect relationship for you. And this is where the question comes from. So it has to do with, you know, what he's into with WildFit and how hunter-gatherers are behaving and mating and all of that. So when you look at most modern relationship, especially in the West, so do you ever wonder if we're actually forcing something unnatural? And I mean, if you study tribal communities or hunter-gatherer societies, like men and women like weren't in constant proximity. Like they had clear separate roles and rhythms. But today we're like co-working, we're co-parenting, we're co-everything under one roof 24/7. And what if the root issue isn't poor communication or unmet needs, which often is a complaint, but the fact that we're living in a setup completely removed from how human mammals evolved to relate?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be that most relationship advice is just trying to fix symptoms of a much deeper environmental mismatch?
I mean, it's a great question, and there's a lot there. My take on that, and I've looked at this from multiple angles, is there is an aspect of our development that is mammalian.
What do you mean?
Well, there's an aspect of our development that, like, I am a mammal. There is a part of me that is mammally, and
Right.
many of the same biological, physiological impulses that other mammals have, we also share. Now, I also believe that we are a developing intelligence and are developing into higher levels of complexity. However, when developing into higher levels of complexity, we also have to integrate the former aspects of ourselves, the former aspects that are energetically, psychologically, physiologically within us. And I think that's where the challenges can happen. Now, I think it would be a severe step back if we were to go back to hunter-gatherer ways of being. So I don't subscribe to going back to a former state of development, because I think that would be the equivalent of us going back to preschool. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like I have grown up and learned some lessons since preschool. Nor do I think the, becoming childlike in our adult development is supportive, right? It's not like we're going back to try and be a child, albeit some people will share that. What I actually believe is that there is a child part of us, this works as an example, that if unintegrated, can have us feeling disconnected from joy in the things that we love. If you're disconnected from the younger aspects of you. When you reconnect with those as an adult, you have both your power and wisdom, if you will, and you have the youthful spirit. And you see people like that they have a playfulness about them. They have a life force about them, but at the same time, you can feel that the maturity in them.
Yeah,
that's a transcending and including, right? And I believe it's the same with our physiology when it comes to relationship, that there is this animalistic aspect to relationship, and there is polarity that's necessary. There is space that's necessary to create healthy dynamics. And I also believe there are skills such as communication, such as learning to love your partner as if you are desiring to be the greatest expert of who they are. Because what tends to happen in relationship for most men and women is that during the first 6 months, first year or first 6 years, depending on who you are, in terms of order of priority, where is that person in your order of priority? So just think back to a relationship. It could be the one you're in. It could be a previous relationship where you were just like, you met the person, you're just like, wow, this person's fucking awesome. Yeah. Now that might have lasted 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years, or 60 years for some people. But there was a moment where something changed. So think back to that relationship. And if you're listening right now, think back to that relationship in the first 6 months. In order of priority, where was that person in your life compared to other aspects of your life? For you, what would that be, Morgan?
Yeah, that got me thinking about, like, I had like these 7 month windows where like that person was my like main priority, and then the honeymoon phase just stopped, and I just like repeated that cycle until I got aware of my attachment style. And then I met my wife, and I was like, it doesn't matter how scared I get, and I want to just like run through the back door. I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna stick with it. So through all of the shit, if I can say that, I've just like stuck with it and trying to see what is me in this whole thing. And are you asking me, when did I stop prioritizing my wife as the number one thing in our life? That might have been, maybe after a year.
After a year,
then we started to focus so much more on getting kids, and that took us 5 years, like doing like the whole IVF thing, and we couldn't get kids at once. So that was just like both of our, like, we were just like super focused on that, and that took a lot of focus away from just being together, just experiencing the other person and having joy for each other.
Yeah. Tracking. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
what normally happens there is that everything we're doing is patterns. Everything. Whether it be health patterns, fitness patterns, spiritual patterns, work patterns, they're patterns, relationship patterns. Now, there are certain patterns that work. There are certain patterns that can get us by, and there's certain patterns that don't work. Now, from my observation of relationships that are thriving versus relationships that are falling, is that in the relationships that are thriving, they have learned skills in order to prioritize the relationship through all stages. So the tendency for men, and this again, we're talking about patterns of the past. We're talking about some physiological patterns here. We're talking about like orders of priority that tends to be for differences in men and women. But the typical pattern is that a man will shift his priority from the relationship, normally at about 6 months to 1 year, from the partner to work. Now, in that moment, she might not be aware of it, but she recognizes that she's no longer priority number one. That's the common pattern that men do. The common pattern that women do is normally when they have a child, the partner then moves from priority 1 to priority 2 or priority 3.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that people tend to love their kids and their pets is because to your kids and your pets, who's priority number 1?
The care holder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because the love from those, does it feel conditional or does it feel unconditional?
Mostly unconditional.
Mostly unconditional, right? From your kids, from your pets, feels like unconditional love. Yeah. So people feel safer when something's unconditional. When you know the other person's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
They feel safer. As soon as you feel like your instincts, your mammalian aspect of yourself is this person isn't fully committed. Whether it's 95%, 90%, 75%, what tends to happen there is the other person starts withdrawing love, withdrawing connection subtly. Because if you're all in 100%, your heart is fully on the line. Fully on the line. And if there's parts of you that are afraid what would happen if that relationship broke because you don't feel like you've got it, that you could deal with that level of heartbreak, because no matter what, in these flesh suits, at some point, we're leaving. 100% mortality rate here.
Yeah.
It's not a 90% mortality rate. It's 100% on this planet. So at some point, we're leaving. And if those fears have not been reconciled and worked with and worked through, then they can show up in the relational field, because you're not committing your heart. You're hiding your heart. And that's not love, right? And those subtle patterns of unsafety start to find their way into the relationship, and it just starts to feel suboptimal. Because to love someone fully is brave. It's really brave to like love all the way.
This makes me a bit emotional because I saw the movie The Notebook, and he says in the beginning when he's an old man that like his biggest mission in life was to live with a heart like fully open and to fully love. And I could feel for so many years that my heart was so closed, and I just like wished for it to be open, but it was such a long journey for me to just like be able to cry, because that wasn't like okay for a man. And I would love for you to share if you have a similar story of yourself or a client you've been working with having like that protection around the shield around your chest, especially around the heart, for many men, you know, the big chest muscle, where like physically and emotionally it feels like a physical emotional lock that just automatically taps in or just locks the emotion as soon as just a little bit of emotion starts to arise. It's just like I don't even have the time to think about it. This was me before. So can you share your thoughts around this?
Great question. Well, I mean, every single man that I have worked with has been working with this to different degrees. But I'll share my own story and experience. And I imagine, as everyone's listening, to like feel where this is true for you, and how, as a man tapping into your emotions, was this something that was celebrated, or is this something that was shunned down in your environment or the culture you grew up in? So my dad left when I was 6 months old, and I had two other fathers. One was a known criminal in our area, gun and car crime, and just an emotionally volatile human being that I was around as a young boy. And I very quickly learned that it was not safe to have emotion and to have experience. And therefore, boom, my protective mechanism comes on there, because as I would share things, I mean, sometimes I would just have severely hurt myself. I remember actually I broke my jaw one time. I don't think I've ever shared this story. I broke my jaw, smashed my teeth on my bike. I come in to the house and I've got blood coming down my mouth, and I've got a towel in my hand. And my stepfather at the time, he said, "Stop being a little puff," which means stop being a little fag or stop being gay, and hit me on the back of the head, said, "Go to your room." My jaw's broken at this point. He didn't know that, but there was blood coming out of my mouth. So even in extreme pain, crying was not welcomed. And that little boy was hurting, that little boy was in pain. He wanted a father, he wanted love, he wanted connection. Wanted to be closer to my mother, but this man was so jealous that he wouldn't let my mum near me. I was in hospital for 6 weeks when my jaw was getting reconstructed. And he was so jealous as a man that he wouldn't let my mum come see me, because my original father who left might be at the hospital. That's how jealous he was. And inside, I'm just a little boy. It's like, where's my mum? Where's my mum? And that shut me down. It shut me down until I was in my early 20s, where I started doing this work, where I started finding other men and mentors who were able to guide me through processes that could have me reconnect to my heart, to have me reconnect to what matters, not in a way where I was becoming a mess, but in a way that I was actually working through my mess, and I was actually coming back to more of who I truly am, more of my strength, more of my courage, more of my heart, more of my power, and more love. And it's been the greatest journey of my life. And I wish it for all men, and to be clear, we're not talking about just like crying in front of our wives, or there is skillfulness in regards to how we work, where, there's places where we can go, where we can release these emotions, where we can be truly in our experience, where we can heal, where we can grow, where we can learn. And then how we share that with others, we learn. Some friends are going to be able to hold you in that. They're going to be like, dude, brother, like, fuck yeah, let it out, bro. And other men are going to judge you for it. And that's on them, right? Like, when someone's judging you for your experience, every single time, it's because they're judging themselves, I've never had someone judge me and just be like, wow, he's so on point. Every time, if I tune in, I'm like, that's you. Like, that's your fear of being in touch with your emotions, and you're projecting it onto me. And if you name that to someone, like, boom, like they will run a mile, or they'll shout at you, because you'll have touched something. You're touching a nerve. So don't go around doing that to people. But the people that are judging you, it's because they're judging themselves. And I know that. And you know that, and anyone listening knows that, because if you really tune into the people you're judging in your life, whether it be now or years back, if you get really honest, was that about them, or was that about you?
Is this internalized in your body, that you like can feel that like directly when someone makes a comment maybe on your post, or they are criticizing you in some way, or how do you react to that? Is it intellectual, or are you like directly feeling that, okay, this has nothing to do with me, this is like all you here?
at this point, I mean, it's not that things
at this point.
it's not that things don't occasionally get me, but I know when someone like kind of like triggers me, that's mine to look at.
Mm.
But I've done so many reps by this point. It's just like if you're a musician or if you're an athlete or if you're a MMA fighter or a boxer, you just do reps and reps and reps and reps and reps. And eventually it just gets in your nervous system. You know, if you're a fighter and someone, you just do reps and reps on jab, hook, you know, and then eventually someone throws a punch at you, you just instinctively duck, right? And that's just reps. And it's the same for the inner work. It's just reps. So at this point, most things, when I see someone projecting onto me or see someone sharing something, my kind of instinct at this point, which has been trained, is just to like recognize that it's there. And predominantly that's my experience.
I got you. Like right now, I feel I can speak to you for 5 more hours, but like the time is ticking and I want to get this one in because I was looking on your Instagram and you posted a beautiful moment of a father giving away his daughter, and not as an act of control, but as an offering of love, protection, and sacred responsibility. And you wrote something that really hit me, that masculinity at its best isn't control, it's containment. It doesn't dominate, it devotes. And that's a big contrast to the other cultural version we often see, like the dad with a shotgun, threats, fear, possession. So here's what I'd love to hear from you. Like in a world still confused about real masculinity and what it is, what does it actually mean to contain rather than control? And how can men step into that kind of grounded, devoted presence without collapsing into passivity or performing strength?
That's a powerful question. Well, I'll speak from my experience. And I grew up around men that were predominantly controlling. Predominantly. However, I also had some great role models in my life too. And my uncle was an incredible role model to me, who was the latter. I mean, he was really protecting, providing, and choosing his wife and his family. And that also left a mark. So there's always positive role models in our life, and then there's sometimes the opposite too. And sometimes it's harder to see the positive role models because we can over focus on the negative ones. I mean, that was certainly true from my experience. And I think it's an exploration for all of us. I don't know about you, but when I really tune into what feels like strength, what feels like courage, dominating someone or posturing or hiding, all of those to me in my nervous system feel like fear. Like if you tune into any men or any man in your life that's done that or doing that, either personally or culturally, does that feel like strength and courage to you? Or does it feel like love, or does it feel like fear? And when I tune into that, it felt like fear. I'm like, that man's actually scared. Whereas the men who were doing something different, like that reel you're pointing to, that to me feels like true strength. That to me feels like true love. That to me feels like real courage. And I have just been orientating myself towards more and more of that, and going through my own process of clearing my own fear up, clearing my own judgments up, clearing my own desire to possess up, and coming into deeper levels of security, trust, power within myself, so that I can give that to other people. Because I cannot give you anything that I do not have myself, you know? I'm having a lovely cup of tea here. I can't give you a tea unless I have tea. If I don't have money in the bank, I can't contribute and give you money. If I don't have skills that I've developed, I can't pass those skills to you. If I don't have my own safety, security, love within myself, I can't give that to my partner. I can't give that to my friends. I can't give that to my children. So recognizing that everything, this was a huge thing for me, recognizing that everything I'm experiencing outside of myself, everything, is a reflection of my inside, my relationship to myself, my relationship to other aspects of life, my relationship to money. It's a relationship. My relationship to self-expression. That's a relationship. Where am I judging people who are expressing themselves? Where am I judging people who have money? Cool. That's within me. And then clearing up and cleaning up and transforming each of those aspects of myself that wasn't having me align with my deepest truth, my deepest level of self-expression, my aligned level of wealth that is supportive for me to self-generate and create what I'm here to create on this planet. Like all of the things that we're looking at here are relationship, and each one of those relationships within ourselves can be transformed. And that's what these skills are. That's what the inner skills are. And these skills have been used for thousands of years from east to west. You know, our psychological spiritual technology is called psychology. It's just a field of tools. You could have the same for shamanism. You know, if we look at here in Costa Rica, if we look at the Amazonian traditions, the Incan traditions, they have different skills and tools that'll have you arrive at a similar place. I mean, we could go to Tony Robbins. Same thing. I mean, we could look at different therapeutic tools. We could look at, Bon Tibetan Buddhism. We could look at, all of these different aspects of the path, but they're all supporting us to come to the same place, to be able to self-liberate, to be able to transform ourselves from the inside out. Just as going to the gym, just as eating well would have you transform that aspect of yourself, right? There are tools which have been passed for thousands of years that support us to do the same thing from the inside out. And when you start having those little breakthroughs, and I assume anyone listening to this podcast you will have had some breakthroughs in your life that now you're living in a different way to what you were 1 year ago. So just get a sense of where you were 1 year ago, where you were 5 years ago, where you were 10 years ago. And can you get a sense of the journey that you've been up until now? And maybe different insights or breakthroughs or tools, whether it be meditation or breath work or different courses you've been on, have begun to shape you. And now you're getting different results. So there's just deeper we can go with that same piece. We can just take that deeper, just like in any field, so that you can have bigger breakthroughs, so that you can have a deeper relationship, so that you can have a greater sense of fulfillment and purpose, so that you can have more abundance. Because all of these different aspects of our experience are workable. And I mean, when I understood that, it was just like, back to the beginning when I was 14 years old, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, it was the insight into recognizing that more was possible. Those success tapes, those tapes from Paul McKenna at the beginning, they opened me up. Wow, what if I got my team sponsored? What if I started doing things that were more outrageous that other people aren't doing? What if? And it was from that possibility that things began to unfold there and continue to unfold. So, what if you're at the precipice of a new breakthrough? What if there is information, tools, skills out there that can have you live a life that in your deepest heart, the deepest core of you, senses, knows is possible?
And if we could segue into what is if you could only choose one healing modality, what would that be? If you just could pick one and use that on clients and on yourself.
Well, I mean, there's a fundamental pattern between all healing modalities.
Which is?
A state of disconnection or dysregulation or pain, paired with a state of greater connection, not conceptually, but in the body and the nervous system, of love, of courage, whatever was needed. Now, if you pair shame with more shame or disconnection, you've got shame squared. That's not healing, right? So don't do that.
That's opposite.
But if you pair shame with love, if you pair shame and fear with love, I got you. Your fear of speaking up, I got you. Your fear of being who you truly are, makes sense, I got you. And what you're doing there, in terms of your nervous system, in terms of what you're firing and wiring together there, are likely the circuits that you needed in that moment but didn't get. You're pairing a wider view, you're pairing a more powerful state with a state of disempowerment. Now, you do that enough, eventually that state of disempowerment becomes wisdom. And it has you be able to be more in touch with life. It starts to allow the shame and the pain not to be something that you wish that was removed. No longer you feel the sting from it because you've integrated it, but actually gives you a deeper connection to what it means to be human. Has you be able to understand that when someone else is in pain, it grows your empathy, your empathic senses. You're more in touch with life. If you were to create music, you'd have a wider range to pull from. So the mechanism beneath all healing modalities, from parts work to work with plant medicines to breath work to, fill in the blank, is you have a state of dysregulation, pain, suffering, trauma, depression, anxiety, guilt, paired with connection, love, attunement, support, courage. And you do enough reps on that, that's what creates the transformation. So you could essentially give me any of the tools that have that mechanism built in, which is pretty much every one of them. And I'd be good.
Yeah, I can see that totally. And what is one of your biggest belief shifts in recent memory? And how has that impacted you?
Biggest belief shifts in recent memory. Well, the one that comes up, it might not be the most recent, but the one that came up, I'll share.
Yeah. This is a Tim Ferriss question. He usually,
okay, cool.
and I love when he asks this question.
I'm just gonna share the one that comes up.
Yeah.
I used to believe that orgasm, we're gonna go in a different direction.
Yeah, let's go.
Was just one thing. Was just one thing for a man. However, about 3 years ago, I was learning Qigong. And essentially this is the Taoist psycho-spiritual arts, so from the East. And they're working on connecting with the life force energy that runs up and down your central channel. So it is a channel of energy which runs from the bottom of your spine up to your cranial nerve in the back of your neck, up through your brain and back down and around. Now, what happened during that training was that I started to have some experiences with my wife that completely blew my mind. It literally, they're called non-ejaculatory orgasms. And I started to have them. I started to have just a full body orgasm without ejaculation. So that was a huge belief shift in terms of wow, there is in every different dimension of life. And I mean, there's more that are just coming up as I think about this. Can
I just unpack that? What were you intentional with having that orgasm without the ejaculation while having sex with your wife, or was it just an effect? It just happened because you were doing qigong and then you had sex and you just experienced that.
That is a great question. So I knew about what I was experiencing, but it wasn't my intention per se to do that.
All right.
albeit the exact training that I was doing didn't have a focus on the doing this inside of a sexual context. It was just getting in touch with that energy. Now, and learning how to work that, right? So just like any meditation, where you focus your attention, where you focus your energy, energy flows. So when you start focusing your energy on that channel, you start to circulate your life force energy. Now, because I was doing that once a day, that naturally created that experience. And it was just like, it was a what the fuck moment. It was like, what the fuck?
Mm.
And I was like phoning my friends, have you had this experience? Like, no. So I was like, fuck.
I'm gonna teach this.
Well, I mean, it was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
and
That's so
yeah, then
cool.
I had to go back to the books again that were more focused from the Taoist tradition on the sexual practices. And what had happened is that I was just oiling that channel, which is the exact same training that you would do if you were trying to intend that to happen for sex. Albeit I just wasn't intending it to happen. It just happened, which is in some ways even better. You know, it's like you just practice here and then it shows up there. And if we look at what, you know, sex is, it's energy, right? We're in the energetic dance with our partner. And it just opened me up again to revealing to me, showing me that there is much more to life. There are much more to the dimensions of experience than I have been told. And that applies to everything, you know? There are dimensions to dreaming, you know, that I didn't know were possible. I've had multiple experiences where I wake up in my dreams now, can co-create with the dream space. I've had experiences where I've, you know, brung my energy body out of my body, and you know that's called astral projection.
Yeah.
I've had a handful of experiences of that. So there's just so many different dimensions to experience that we can explore that are very different to what I grew up knowing. You know, there's many different ways that we can experience life, and there's just so much to it, you know, and some of those are going to be helpful and useful, some of them less so, but it's just cool that these dimensions exist. And what I really care for is it enriching our lives? Is it enriching my life? And therefore, is that enriching the lives of those around me? And if it's a yes to that, then normally I'll continue with those practices.
Yeah. But does it also excite you? Like, what else is possible? What else is out there in my, like, in this flesh suit? What else can I experience?
I mean, in some ways, yes.
Yeah.
In some ways, yes. I mean, that's my curiosity to continue learning and growing. And in some ways, it's you know, some of these experiences have just like allowed me just to rest in to the unknown to a deeper degree. So it's both. It's both humbled me into just like the vastness of what there is to learn and experience.
Yeah.
But also, I tend to focus my curiosity in towards that which is one, has my natural interest, but also is going to support me to be a greater partner, friend, brother.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And one last thing, if if you could just like briefly point out what are men mostly like suffering with that are seeking your help, and what message do you have for men that are struggling with just finding their place in life with themselves? They know that they need to do something because they're just like trapped in their own mind and their patterns, as you said before. They got so many patterns that are not beneficial for them.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say is I feel you, brother. I know what it's like to experience that. And what you're experiencing right now, if you lean into it, is the greatest opportunity. Like everything that you want and more will come from you facing and embracing what it is you're resisting. And at a more practical level, is like, what skills, what parts of you need to be integrated, need to be transformed, need to be let go of, so that you can be the man that you're here to be. so that you can move your emotional home. Now, your emotional home is just where you're living moment by moment. So on a 0 to 10 right now, where's your emotional home? 10 being loving life, fulfilled, amazing partner, happy, joyful most days. 0 being, I'm right on the edge. Life fucking sucks. So where are you on that 0 to 10 right now? And then find ways, find people, find support, get around people that are a notch or two above your emotional home, that are living maybe lives a little bit more fulfilling or a lot more fulfilling. Learn, become a student, apprentice yourself with curiosity, apprentice yourself and have enough courage and humility to learn from others, and have enough courage and respect for yourself to distance or move away from those who aren't supporting you in this moment. Whether that be food, drugs, people, or certain habits. Have enough respect for yourself to stop distancing yourself from those. And then step by step, you will start moving where you're living from. And there might be skills that you have to learn. You might have to learn how to regulate your nervous system. You might have to learn how to communicate. You might have to learn how to express yourself more skillfully. You might have to learn these things. And there are also amazing opportunities. It's so good to learn. It's so good to not have a skill, and then 6 months, 1 year later, you've got this whole new skill set and just life opens up. So, if you can take the view and perspective that this is not happening to you, it might feel like that, but this is happening for you, and that the challenge you're facing is the exact thing that you need to become the man you're here to become, and you can take on that view, take on that perspective, it will unfold. It has to unfold if you start walking with that intent. And you'll start to see where there was once difficulty, or where it seemed there was a wall, there is a way through. And if you do that enough and you get enough reps in, you just keep doing that over and over and over and over again, and then you start getting around people who are doing that, very quickly that growth, it's like have you seen the graph of like exponential growth? It's just like trickles, it moves up a little bit, and then boom, it takes off. Eventually that's going to happen.
Yeah, man, that's great advice, my friend. And if anybody is interested in learning more about you, connecting with you, where can they go?
www.rickwilliam.com. From there, you'll see all the programs I have. I also have a free app, which has different trainings. A lot of the things I've been talking about today are on there. I even have a purpose and legacy workshop and purpose and legacy playbook, which you can kind of go through and kind of step by step kind of have your own insights and learn skills and tools that are going to support you in becoming the man that you're here to become. And that's free. There's tons of stuff inside of there. And that's on the App Store and on the Android App Store or Google Play under Rick William Toolbox.
Yeah, and we'll drop everything in the show notes, so just go over there and check it out. Rick William, I truly feel that we could do like 16 more of these episodes. And we couldn't go through all the questions, but I so much appreciate your time and wish you all the best, and hope to see you in the future, and hopefully on the A-Fest.
Yes, brother. Morgan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. It's been great spending time with you today. Your questions have been on point. So I really appreciate you. Have a beautiful day, and I'm sure we will speak soon.
Thank you so much. All right.